Hello everybody, Doug Daniel, founder of the Pilots Online Academy, where our mission is making superior piloting simple. Welcome to Module 8 of Phase 1, Basic Maneuvers, Slow Flight. Here's what you'll learn. The purpose and value of slow flight, safety considerations, slow flight in various configurations, and common mistakes. I define slow flight as flight at the slowest controllable airspeed. The purpose: there is much greater value than just passing an FAA check ride. A well-executed landing requires slow flight just inches above the runway. Additionally, a go-around, officially called a balked landing, often starts in that slow flight configuration extremely close to the ground. It must be executed with precision. Precautions before slow flight: clearing turns. Scan the airspace near, above, and below the area you plan to practice in. You'll want to do 2 turns, one in each direction, looking above and below as well as horizontally. The turns get the wings out of your field of view. Enter slow flight. Pick a point on the horizon to fly directly toward in a straight and level flight. Reduce power to idle. Maintain constant heading and altitude as the airplane slows. You'll need to slowly pitch up to compensate for the loss of lift caused by the loss of airspeed. You'll want to fly within 2 or 3 knots of a stall, so try to get the stall warning making as much noise as possible. A Cessna 152 has an auditory stall warning. When the airplane enters pre-stall burbles, you can feel them in the elevator control as a shuttering. Accelerate by adding just enough power to fly slightly faster than the onset of burbling. As you move the throttle forward, you will need to press on the right rudder pedal to compensate for P-factor and keep the airplane from yawing left. Sustaining slow flight. Depending on your sitting height, the instrument panel may obscure the horizon. If it does, realize that you need to either turn, pitch down, or accelerate from time to time to keep the airspace ahead clear. You may be surprised at how high your RPM needs to be to keep from descending. While beyond the scope of this lesson, that tells you that you are behind the power curve. Notice how soft the controls are. It requires much less force to move them at those speeds, and the airplane does not respond as quickly. Monitor your oil temperature gauge. At this low airspeed and high power, your oil cooler is struggling to keep up. Exercises during slow flight. Since this is a training maneuver designed to develop landing skills, you should do some landing related maneuvers. Deploy your flaps 10 degrees at a time. Since you use your right hand to control the throttle and flaps, you cannot do both at the same time. Flap extension increases both lift and drag. This means that it lowers the stall speed. You can fly slower. Add power and right rudder pressure as you deploy flaps. Don't neglect altitude and heading control. Once you have maximum flaps deployed, you will need a lot of power and rudder deflection to maintain heading and altitude. Exercises during slow flight. Strangely enough, a Cessna 152 stalls at a lower angle with flaps deployed. You should be flying in a less nose-up attitude with full flaps. Now is a good time to simulate some near-the-runway maneuvers. Simulate a go-around. Apply full power and even more rudder pressure. Retract the flaps without losing any altitude. This requires an increase in pitch attitude while the flaps retract. Maintain level flight until you have reached best rate of climb airspeed, then climb. Practice turns and glides. It is important to have a good feel for the airplane in that region of flight. Recovering from slow flight. Apply full power and additional right rudder pressure while maintaining constant altitude and heading until reaching best rate of climb indicated airspeed. As you accelerate, you will need less and less rudder pressure. If flaps were deployed, retract the flaps without sacrificing altitude or airspeed. Once you have attained enough airspeed to see objects on the horizon at 12 o'clock, meaning straight ahead. Verify that you are pointed at the same point that you were when you entered. If you intend to return to cruise, follow normal leveling off procedures. If you intend to climb, start a normal climb when you reach best rate of climb indicated airspeed. Things to guard against: accidental stalls, especially cross-control stalls that could lead to a spin. Mid-air collisions. Keep mentally out of the cockpit and visually clear the airspace around you periodically. Overheated engine. At a low airspeed and high power setting, engines do not cool efficiently. Letting the airplane becomes cross-controlled, meaning the ball not in the center, raises the stall speed and increases drag, and it's just not a good habit to develop. Fixating on one parameter at the expense of others, for example, focusing on altitude and letting the heading wander, or any other combination. Here's what you've learned: the purpose and value of slow flight, safety considerations, slow flight in various configuration, and common mistakes. Here's what next. Stalls are mostly bad, but sometimes good. Why you want to become really good at detecting and recovering stalls. What causes a stall and what doesn't. How to practice stalls and do it safely, and common mistakes. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk again soon.